MongoDB is a fast document-oriented database program. It uses JSON-like documents with optional schemas, which makes it fast, flexible, and user-friendly at the same time. Not a lot of people know this, but MongoDB is written in Python, C++, and JavaScript. I always wanted to watch a video which covered MongoDB, the entire MongoDB basics in one single video. Well, today is my time to create one. Hi everyone, my name is Harry, and today I'm going to teach you everything you need to know to create awesome applications using MongoDB. We'll get started with downloading MongoDB. We'll set it up on our machine. We will understand what is MongoDB, the difference between the Mongo daemon and the Mongo client, and the ways to connect to your MongoDB cluster. After understanding all these basics, we'll understand what the difference between a database, a document, and a collection is. Before we get started, I would like to thank Linode for inviting me to this channel. We'll now go to our computer screen and start the installation of MongoDB. Let's get started. So here I am inside of my computer screen, and most importantly inside my Linode account, and we are going to provision a MongoDB database. If you don't know what MongoDB is at this point, we are going to very soon understand all the nitty-gritties of what MongoDB is and how to work with MongoDB. So I just clicked on this databases tab, and you can see fully managed and highly scalable database clusters. Choose your Linode plan, select a database engine, and deploy in minutes. So let's click on create database cluster, and we want a MongoDB cluster. So let's type MongoDB Linode, and database engine is going to be MongoDB, and I'm going to choose the latest version. In case MongoDB gets updated later in the future, I highly recommend you select the most updated MongoDB version. And let's select the region. I am in India, so I'm going to select Mumbai, India. You might want to select a region where your servers are, where most of your traffic is coming from. So if your users who are hitting the database directly are in United States, you might want to select a region which is closer to the people who are using the database directly. So let's now choose a plan. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select a dedicated CPU plan, and simply I'm going to select this dedicated 8 GB plan. So 8 GB is the RAM, the amount of random access memory, and 160 GB is going to be the storage. 160 GB is huge if you want to store textual data. So let me proceed with this. So I'm going to select number of nodes as 1 because this is a tutorial, but if you are deploying a production service or something which is really important to you, I highly recommend that you select 3 nodes or more than 1 nodes. So this is allowed IPs. Let me tell you what this is. So your database cannot be accessed from everywhere because this is going to be a security risk if Linode allows that. So what happens is you can actually punch in the IP addresses where you want the traffic to come from. So traffic will only be allowed from those IP addresses. So add any IPv4 address or range that should be authorized to access this cluster. So at this point, I want everybody to be able to use this. So you can actually select add and click add an IP, and you can add the allowed IP address or the addresses. Okay, so you can add multiple IP addresses. I can have my local machine access this MongoDB cluster, as well as I will have my production server to select this MongoDB cluster. So I'll click on create database cluster. Let me wait for it to provision. So it takes a while for provisioning, and after it's all done, it will give you a notification that your database cluster is ready and you can use it. So I'm going to give it some time, and I recommend you give it some more time because it sometimes takes a while for things to settle down. So allow things to settle down, grab a cup of coffee, and we'll be back. In the meantime, I want all of you to understand what MongoDB is, and in order to make you understand what MongoDB is and why we are using MongoDB, let me show you something. So MongoD versus MongoDB. Let me show you what I'm trying to make you understand here. So basically what happens is there is a service which basically takes care of all the database commands. So whenever you are issuing any command, you simply tell that service, hey, I want to store this into my database, or I want this to delete from my database, or I want to update this particular key in my database, and so on. So that particular service takes care of storing the data, managing the data, how data is stored, how index is created, this and that. Okay. How you connect to that service is, however, possible from different places. For example, I can connect to that database from my local computer or from a connector. Let us say I'm writing JavaScript code. I can use Mongoose to connect to that database, or maybe I'm using Python. I can use PyMongo to connect to that, to the same database, or I might even use my command line to connect to that database. So it's totally optional. You can see in this image that this person has basically connected to the local MongoDB instance through the computer, through the local computer that this guy is having. What we are going to do is we are going to connect to this MongoDB Linode instance, the MongoDB cluster that we have created, and we are going to connect to this. From where we connect is totally optional, but there is a way to connect to this cluster in a very organized manner. You'll see all the databases, you'll see all the indices. It'll be very easy for you to manage things. And we are going to install MongoDB Compass. Now, the very first question that comes to your mind might be, what exactly is this MongoDB Compass? Why are we even downloading it? Is it the database? Is it something that is going to store the data? No, this is not going to store the data. MongoDB Compass is simply a way for us to connect to our MongoDB instance that we have just provisioned. It's not yet provisioned, but we are provisioning it, and it'll be ready to use very soon. So this is just a way to connect. Let us say you have a library. You might go to the library through car. You might go to the library by walking to the library. You might go to the library by using an elevator. But how many books are there in the library doesn't change. In a very similar way, this is actually storing the data. The MongoDB instance is storing the data, but we are selecting out of a lot of options. We are selecting this particular option to connect to our MongoDB cluster. Which option? MongoDB Compass. So let's download MongoDB Compass. I'm not going to waste any more time. And MongoDB Compass, let's read about MongoDB Compass. Let's see what mongodb.com has to say about this. Easily explore and manipulate your database with Compass. The GUI for MongoDB. This is a GUI for MongoDB. This is a GUI which can be used to connect to any MongoDB instance in this world. Where is my database residing? It's residing in Mumbai according to Linode, and I trust Linode. So yes, it's in Mumbai, and it might be in California, it might be in China, it might be in Europe, it might be in any other place. But where am I connecting to this database from? I'm connecting to this database from India. So MongoDB Compass actually allows you to do this. Intuitive and flexible, Compass provides detailed schema visualizations, real-time performance metrics, sophisticated querying abilities, and much more. And we are going to see what this much more means. Okay, let's download this. I'm not going to waste any more time. It takes a while to download. Let me click on this so that it opens as soon as it downloads. So I simply installed MongoDB Compass just like I install a game on my computer. Okay, so all I need right now is a URI. What exactly is URI? URI stands for Universal Resource Identifier, and in this case, this string actually identifies the database you want to connect to. Which database do I want to connect to? I want to connect to this Linode database. It's still provisioning. I got a notification, and let me reload this page. Still provisioning, so I'll wait for it to provision, and I'll show you how to connect to MongoDB Linode instance through your MongoDB Compass. So database cluster is provisioned. Now let's see how we can connect to this database cluster. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy the host and I'm going to paste the host here. So I'll simply say that my host is this. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy the username. So the username is linroot. Let me copy the username and I'll authenticate using username and password. All you need to do is simply follow the process. Now you can see my password, but you don't have to show your password to anybody because I'm going to use this cluster as a demo and I'm going to delete this cluster later, which is why I'm showing you my password, but never ever expose your passwords. Now I'll copy this password and paste it here. The next step that we need to do is we need to mention the port 27017, which is mentioned right here. So you need to mention the port. The next step is to manage the access control. So I'm going to add my IP. So I'll simply say my IP. This is my IP, so I'm going to paste my IP, update access controls, and this basically adds my IP. And all you need to do after that is simply go to TLS, make it on, and check all three of these, and simply click save and connect instead of clicking connect, because we can save our connection. So what I'll do is I'll say MongoDB Linode tutorial. Okay, and I'm going to give it a color and I'll show you what happens. So I'll give it a yellow color and click save and connect, and this database just got saved and I've connected to this. So even if I click disconnect, I can see this here, and I can simply click on this one and then click connect, and then I should be able to connect to this. Okay, now if you have never ever seen MongoDB compass, you might get overwhelmed by what queries are, databases, performance, what are all these. But I'm going to show you what all these are. So all you need to focus on right now is on databases. Click on databases and let's click on create database, and let's create a database. Okay, let me call this database Harry, and let me call this collection name as Harry, because we need to create a collection in order to create a database. And I'll simply click on create database, and you can see that this Harry has been created. Okay, let me click on Harry and this collection is created, and I should be able to insert a document inside of this database. Now I know a lot of you are getting confused, but I'm going to explain each and everything that I'm basically speaking here. So let me add a document. In order to add a document, you can simply say insert document, and let me write this JSON kind of file, and let me put a comma here, and let me click insert, and you can see that I have actually inserted my first document inside of my collection. Now let's talk about what collection is, what database is, and what document is. Okay, because these things might get very confused. So let me Google search document, collection, and database in Mongo. And let me see if I can get some image to explain all these things to you in much more better way. So I got this image. So you can see MongoDB database. Inside MongoDB database there are collections. Inside of MongoDB collection there are documents. And let me explain all of these through a very simple analogy. What is that analogy? The analogy is Excel. All of you must have used Excel, and let me show you. So all of us have used Excel. Okay, Excel is simply a spreadsheet program. You can create a workbook. Inside of workbook there are a lot of sheets. So let me call this collection 1. This is my collection 1. Let me call this collection 2. So all these are my sheets. Okay, I can create multiple sheets. One of my sheet is holding, let us say I run a restaurant, and let us say orders, and let me also increase the size of the cell so that it actually makes sense for me to store it as a heading. Again, also let me do this so that I can store orders inside of this. And let us say I want to copy this, and instead of orders, let me say products, or rather items. Okay, I can store items here, I can store orders here. There can be another sheet which might store the discount coupons and so on. So all these are just like collections in MongoDB. And what is this? So let us say this is my order 1, and the name of the person is Ramesh and Suresh, and let us say John, and let us say Harry, and all these are my orders. Okay, order 1, order 2, order 3, order 5. All these entries that I'm punching inside of this collection are actually documents, and this entire worksheet is actually a database. So if I translate this analogy to MongoDB, this will translate something like this. This worksheet which I've created inside of Excel is a database. Okay, so the database is restaurant. What is a restaurant? It basically contains all my orders, all my products. It basically manages my business. Okay, the data of my business. And these collections are basically the tables inside of my database. These are basically storing different things of my restaurant. Let us say the items, or the products, or the discount coupons, and I can have as many collections as I like. Okay, I can keep on adding sheets to this spreadsheet, and I have a lot of storage inside of my hard disk. As long as I have storage, I can keep on adding these. And in a very similar way, as long as your database has storage, you can keep on adding collections. So if I translate the analogy of Excel to MongoDB, the database is basically a spreadsheet. Collections is basically sheets inside of my spreadsheet, and document are basically rows in my spreadsheet. So if restaurant is my database, and let us say the name of my restaurant is Hungry Point. Okay, the Hungry Point is basically the database, and orders is a collection, items is a collection, discount coupons is a collection, and let us say Harry 23 is a discount coupon which provides you 10% of discount. That discount coupon is basically a document inside of discount collection. I hope this is clear. Now, if this is clear, I want all of you to type a comment that this is clear to me. Write a comment that I'm crystal clear about database, collections, and documents. And if you understand this analogy, you are never ever going to get confused between database, collections, and documents. This is my promise. Now, in order to better understand how MongoDB works, I want all of you to connect to MongoDB using the Mongo shell. And if you click here, you will see the Mongo shell. And we are going to learn about all the commands of MongoDB. Okay, I'm going to Google search MongoDB cheat sheet, and I'm going to open this cheat sheet, and inside of this cheat sheet are all the commands which you need to follow. Okay, let me copy the first command. View all databases. So how many databases do we have? Let's see. So in order to see all databases inside of your MongoDB cluster, you simply say show DBs. So there are 4 databases inside of my MongoDB cluster. The first one is admin. It was again automatically created by MongoDB. The config was actually created by MongoDB as well. Harry was something that we created in this video. And local is something that was automatically created. Okay, now let us say I want to create a new database, and I'm actually serious about my business this time. And let's say I want to create Hungry Point as a place where people go and quench their thirst and they satisfy their hunger. So let's create this database. So let me say use Hungry Point. I hope you are able to see this. So if I punch use Hungry Point, it basically switched to DB Hungry Point. Now if I punch show DBs, you'll see that we have admin, we have config, we have Harry, we have local, and we have Hungry Point, which we are basically using. Now if I say use local, I'm actually switched to DB local, and I can basically do something like this to zoom in. And also let me do this so that you're able to see what I'm doing. Control plus is basically the shortcut that worked. Okay, and I'm very happy it worked. So if I say show DBs once again, you'll see we have admin, we have config, we have Harry, we have local. But why don't we have Hungry Point once again? I'll tell you why. Okay, and I want you to guess in the comments below, why is Hungry Point not being shown up here? Okay, but again, if you're not able to guess, that's totally fine, and I don't expect you to guess. Let me type use Hungry Point once again so that this Hungry Point is basically created. Not exactly created because we don't have a collection yet. So let me add a new collection to this database. So in order to add new collection to a database, all you have to do is run this command, db.create collection. So let me copy this command and let me paste it here. And this time I'm going to create a collection called orders. Okay, so db.create collection orders. Okay, now if I say show DBs, you'll actually see Hungry Point here. So in order for your DB to be actually created, it should have a collection inside of it. And if it doesn't have a collection inside of it, you are going to face problems. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to say show collections, which is a command which is mentioned here, show collections. So we saw how to view all the database. We saw how to switch databases. We saw how to view the current database. Simply type DB and you will be able to see which database is being used currently. In our case, Hungry Point is being used. And you can even say db.drop database and it will actually delete the current database. I don't want to do that, but I want to delete this database Harry because I don't want it to, hang around in here and create problems for me in the future. I might think, why did I create this database called Harry when I'm actually not using it? So let's do one thing. Let's delete this database Harry. So in order to delete this, I'll say use Harry. I switch to the database Harry, and now I'll simply copy this command db.drop database, and it got dropped. Now if I say show DBs, what happens is admin config hungry point local, you can see all these databases are showing up, but Harry is actually deleted. Okay, now if I say use hungry point, so I'm switched to a new database called hungry point. So this is actually an existing database, not a new database, but we are switched to hungry point. Okay, so we just saw how to delete a database. Now we just saw how to show all the collections. We saw how to create collections. I can simply say show collections. The commands are quite intuitive. Now let's add a document inside of orders collection. This is the second step that I want to do. Okay, so in order to insert a document, all I'll do is I'll use this format. So let me simply paste this, but I don't want to say lang JavaScript. I want to see item 1, and let us say the name of the item is kulcha, and quantity QTY, and let us say I want 5 kulchas. Okay, name is Harry, item is 1, item 1 is kulcha, quantity is 5, and I want to punch this inside of my database, but again not into my comments collection. I want it inside of my orders collection, inside of hungry point database. So hungry point is a company which actually has orders, and the orders are inserted inside of orders collection. Okay, so if I press enter, you can see that it shows me insert is deprecated, but actually it got inserted. You should use insert one, insert many, or bulk write instead. So we are going to focus on these commands in the future, but again insert also works, let me tell you. Now let us say I want to see all the documents inside order. So I'll simply say db.orders.find and I'll run it. Okay, so let me do something like this, and you can see that it has 1 kulcha. Can I see all these orders from here? From here? Yes, I can. You can try this out and you will be able to see. So if you click on databases, I've actually zoomed in. So it might not be very intuitive, and also I'll refresh. So I have this hungry point, I have these orders, and all these orders will be, it will show me all the orders here. Let me zoom out and you can see that the first order is punched into the system. Okay, but again I'll zoom in because I'm focusing on Mongo shell, and if your basics are clear, you'll be able to add documents, delete documents, and do all the things from somewhere outside of MongoDB Compass. Okay, for example in JavaScript, in Python, or in some different language. Okay, now since we have this document inserted inside my orders collection, I can add even more orders inside of my orders collection, and this time I'm going to use insert one. Okay, I'm going to say insert one. I want to insert this item inside of my database, and let us say this time John ordered. Okay, and this time he ordered, let us say, a sandwich. Okay, now let's press enter, acknowledge true. Now let's see that whether the sandwich has been inserted or not. Yes, it has been inserted. 5 sandwiches by John, 5 kulchas by Harry. Now let us say there is another person called Andrew, and Andrew basically likes, let us say, rolls. Okay, or let us say he likes rolls. Okay, and he need 2 rolls. Okay, veg roll, and he likes to order 2 veg rolls. Now if I show you db.orders.find, you'll see 5 kulchas by Harry, 5 sandwiches by John, and 2 veg rolls by Andrew. Okay, so this is how you insert documents inside of your database. Now from different programming languages, there will be different ways to insert documents. You'll actually listen to APIs, and the moment the API actually wants you to insert data into the database, you'll do it. For example, let us say you have a sign up API. If all the information entered by the user is correct, you might want to punch the user information inside of your database, and you'll also use that database to log in and log out users. Okay, So you can do all those things. Okay, now you can even insert in bulk. So this is how you do it. You can use insert many to insert in bulk. Okay, you can even search in a MongoDB database, and this is how you can do advanced search in a MongoDB database. So in order to advanced search, all you have to do is, let us say I want to find what is ordered by Andrew. Okay, so I'll simply say name Andrew, and it will show me only the orders by Andrew. Ideally, your collection is going to have a lot of data. So you will have to use all these filters, and this is how you filter your data. Now let us say we have another order by Andrew, and this time Andrew is basically ordering 3 coffees, black coffees. Okay. Now let's see whether this command is actually pulling that order out. Yes, it is. So we can see that item 1 is veg roll and item 1 is black coffee. Now let us say I want to find out how many coffees Andrew is drinking. So I want to check the record of Andrew and coffee, how many coffees he's drinking. So I'll actually punch this data here, and I'll simply create a JavaScript kind of object, and I'll simply give it in this way. And I'm saying name is Andrew, the item 1 is black coffee. Tell me how many such entries exist in the database. So there is only one such entry. Okay, let us say Andrew orders another black coffee, and this time he orders only 1. And let me punch this into the system as well. And now if I run this particular command, db.orders.find name Andrew item 1 black coffee, you'll see that this entry as well as this entry is pulled out of database. Now let me tell you something. Let me tell you what this underscore ID is. This is a unique ID given to all the documents inside of MongoDB collections. So this ID is always unique for a given collection, and you can fetch your document using this ID because this uniquely identifies a record inside of a collection. Okay, so if you want to refer to this document, all you need is the ID. And this ID is going to be unique always. You will not have any other document of this ID inside of this collection, inside of this database. Okay, I hope that you understood what IDs are and how MongoDB is basically working. Okay, let's move to some more commands. We'll look into some more commands, and this is something that I want you to try. Limit the number of rows in output. So if you have 200 documents being fetched out of the database and you want only 2 documents to be fetched at the database layer, you can use this command. I want all of you to try it on your own. Another one is the count command. This simply tells you the count in the output. All you have to do is simply say .count after find. So let me say .count, and it will actually tell me that there are 2 such records inside of this collection. So 2 documents inside of this collection. Now I can even update a row, okay, or a document. When I say row, I mean a document. So let's see how to update a document. Okay, now what I'm doing is I'm simply saying that I want to update all the orders of black coffee by Andrew inside of orders database. So I'll simply say in the Hungry Point database, change the orders table and update the entry with name Andrew to name, let us say, Johnny. Okay, and simply change the item 1 to banana shake. Okay, and quantity to 1. Okay, now this is something that I'm doing, and I'm saying upsert true, which means that even if there is no Andrew inside of my database, I am going to get a new entry inside of my database. Okay, and I'll simply write here $set, and I'm going to give the object to which I want to set this, and I'll press enter, and you can see that modified count is 1. So it actually updated 1 document inside of the database. So this is how basically you can update 1. Okay, now this is MongoDB increment operator which you can use, and again there is a rename operator as well where you can actually rename a particular field. So I want all of you to try these commands on your own. Now we are going to see how to delete commands in MongoDB. Okay, so in order to look up to the documentation, all you need to do is MongoDB delete, And why I'm looking to the documentation and not on the cheat sheet, because I can actually have updated commands if I look into the documentation. Even if something is deprecated, something changes, I can actually have access to the latest data. Instead of referring to some third party cheat sheet, I can even copy commands directly from the documentation. So in order to delete a document, what I'm going to do is I'm going to see how to delete document in MongoDB. I'll simply use delete one, and this is the filter. Let me see if I can use an example from here. So they have this one, this example. Let me see if I can use this. All I need to do is copy this command. So I'll copy this ID. I'll simply copy this ID, and what I'll do is I'll paste it here. So let's see if I can actually delete this entry from the database. And yes, it's acknowledged and deleted. So I can find an object and delete it, and this is basically the filter that I want to delete. So let me do one thing. Let me say db.orders.find, and let me pull out everything from the database. Now let us say I want to delete all the items with name as John. Okay, now if I run delete many, okay, instead of delete one, if I say delete many, and if I say name is John, let me say, or rather name is Andrew, I want to simply delete all the entries with name Andrew. It actually deleted all the entries with name Andrew, and you can see that all the entries with name Andrew have been deleted. Let me do one thing. Let me simply add some more entries into the database. Let me punch it again, and let me do something like this. Let me delete all the entries with name Andrew once again. So I'm saying delete many and name Andrew. This time our collection has more than one documents with name Andrew. Let me run this, and this time the deleted count was 2. So this is how you can delete data from the database. Now what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to zoom out so that you can have a look at my MongoDB compass, and let's see if all these things are being reflected here. So if I click on orders and if I reload the database, all you need to do is click here to reload. You'll see that all these documents are actually inserted, and these commands are basically changing the data in the database. Okay. Now, before I end this video and conclude this short video, this MongoDB crash course, firstly, I want to ask you whether this was helpful or not. So make sure you drop a comment and tell me whether this was helpful or not. And the second thing that I want to tell you is about aggregation pipeline. So let me tell you what exactly this is. So when you have a large amount of data in a database and you want to perform some operations in the database, and let us say the operation is not exactly a single operation but a chain of operations. Let us say you want to pull all the orders from the database. Now you want to find out how many orders are actually belonging to year 2022, and then let us say you want to find how many out of these orders are actually the orders with amount greater than $50, and so on. You want to keep on chaining the operations. You can actually create aggregation pipelines. You can say the first stage of my pipeline will basically fetch all the data. The second stage of my pipeline will actually update the data. The third stage of my pipeline will basically filter the data, and so on. So you can perform multiple operations using aggregation pipeline at the database layer. Now you can always bring all the data, perform some operation right there, and it will definitely work. But again, fetching all the data has its cost. It has a lot of computational complexity and space complexity associated with it. So if we do something right at the database layer, you don't even have to bring all the data. Now bringing 20 documents, 30 documents is not a big deal. But if we talk about 20 million documents or 20 billion documents for that matter, it's definitely going to be a big deal, and we need to optimize. So in order to optimize our huge operations, we want to perform all the operations at the database layer. So I want all of you to read more about aggregation pipelines, and you can do it from MongoDB documentation. I can assure you that MongoDB has a very good documentation on aggregation pipeline. So this is something that you all should learn, and this will definitely help you out in the future. Now, before I conclude, where should you go from here? How should you continue your MongoDB journey? Now, your learning is never going to get over. This is something that I can assure you. Every time you learn something, MongoDB is going to get updated. You are going to explore more and more things. You are going to learn different ways of doing a specific thing, and so on. So your learning is always going to continue. So create some projects, provision a database yourself. This is a very important step. Whatever I've done here, I want all of you to do it yourself. Do it yourself, do it on your own. Don't just watch the video, do it on your own. If you do it on your own, you are going to learn a lot, 10x more, believe me. So provision a MongoDB cluster, copy the username, password, host port, and SSL, and simply download MongoDB Compass. It's free, it's totally free of cost, and learn about MongoDB commands and try to execute some commands on your own. If you execute commands on your own, believe me, you're going to learn a lot. With that said, I hope this video was helpful. Make sure that you like this video and also make sure to check out resources and different links in the description.